Two-factor, as we know it, is bullshit. I go to Facebook and say, I would like to read all of that personal data you're holding for me.
I wish to enter my vault.
Facebook ideally should only give that information to me, its owner, right? So it asks me who I am.
Identification?
I say my name.
I'm Spartacus!
That is, I identify myself.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Now, I need to be able to prove to Facebook that I am actually me. That is, I need to authenticate. There are 3 things you can use to authenticate. Something you have,
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
something you are, or something you know.
The passport!
I bet your home has a physical key. That's an example of authorization via something you have. You can go ahead and ask the lockpicking lawyer about how innovation in that field has been stagnant since 1861.
The lock that's on most people's front door has stayed essentially the same for roughly 160 years.
There's a few methods right now that attempt to demonstrate something you have. Your cell phone, hardware tokens, authenticator apps, certificates. Charlatans like Facebook will tell you that your phone is the something you have, and intuitively, that makes sense. Think about your current phone. I bet since you've owned it, it's been on your person the entire time other than when you've been in the pool, in the shower, in your bed, or in someone else's bed. And even during those exceptions, it's probably very close by. So if you could prove you are the person in possession of your phone, that must be you, right? The way they do this is send a secret passcode to your phone. That way, surely no one else could have received that passcode, and surely you did receive your passcode, but there's 2 problems.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
I call out Facebook, Meta, by name because they're the pioneers of this problem.
You're the cause of all this.
They told users, give us your cell phone number. It's only for security. It'll keep you secure. We'll keep you secure. It's going to increase your privacy and security. So users gave their cell phone numbers to Facebook, who immediately used it for advertising purposes. When you use your cell phone number to authenticate with Facebook, in that moment you've demonstrated to Facebook, and thus their real customers, that your phone number is able to receive texts, does not filter out automated texts, does not filter out texts from numbers that don't even pretend to be human, sees text from parties that change their sending address randomly, meaning you can't just have a contact called Facebook's mandatory authentication, belongs to someone willing to put up with spam texts, is actively known by Facebook, who has a model of your interests. They got some public backlash in 2019, but no legal repercussions. This effectively signaled to the world, here's a viable business tactic. You too should lie to your customers to get more data you can sell. The fine for data theft is $0.
This one's for free.
Now there's a financial incentive to push the idea that you are your cell phone, and an effective tactic to do so is to cite security. If control of your bank account is tied to your phone, the real owner of your phone is in control of your bank account. Apple does the most work to tell its customers, you'll own nothing and be happy, but let's not retread all that. When I say hardware token, I imagine most people think of specifically a YubiKey. YubiKeys are fine in theory. It's a small device that interacts with the company's API for other applications to authenticate against. They specifically have a few problems. One, you have to hope every device you used to use a password on has a port for you. USB-C is fairly widespread, so if you don't mind throwing all your old electronics in the garbage, you're mostly okay there. As for ATMs, all you have to do is hope banks learn how security works. 2, it's extremely brand-centric. Name a competitor to Yubico, I dare you. If someone else comes up with a good idea, they'll have to plead with Yubico to get it into the API. To authenticate with a YubiKey, the device still needs to communicate with a Yubico server in the way that Yubico commands. 3, Yubico is a regular for-profit business, so they're up to like generation 5 of their device, which has jumped from $25 to $55. Yet again, a company's profit incentive is bad for everyone outside of the company. Authenticator apps are a great way to untie you from a company's products like your cell carrier or your cell phone manufacturer or Yubico. I suspect that's why they're quietly ignored. Google Authenticator is some of Google's best work, a very simple interface to get timed, one-time passwords. A password that's extremely easy to type, but resists brute force cracking by expiring quickly and automatically. My beloved KeePass XC and KeePass DX support them as well. Microsoft made their own version. Unsurprisingly, it's terrible. All of these apps acknowledge that they are code running on unknown devices, which allows you to decide this thing I have will be the something I have. When we need to get some work done and don't have to involve cufflink-wearing motherfuckers, we use certificates. Need to write software quickly and efficiently? Certificates. Two machines need to talk to each other? Certificates. Interestingly, this kind of means that the something you have can authenticate itself without you. They've registered themselves as a device, but they do this by setting up a very complicated shared secret. Your laptop can't get up and visit your bank's website. It can only send information about itself. The something I am method is alluring. Imagine you had a doorman at the front of your apartment who recognizes you on sight. He evaluates the shape of your face, maybe your walking gait, and determines that this person before him is you. It sounds great. All he had to do was effortlessly use his human-level intellect for a moment, and you didn't have to do anything. You passively, constantly emanate you-ness, as shown by how a dog can smell a person from outside the house. There's two major problems. One, without more intrusive sampling, you-ness isn't that difficult to fake.
Remember how you said we couldn't covertly get your fingerprint?
Two, very accurate sampling is often unacceptably intrusive. Surely you don't plan to mail in a blood sample to buy some V-Bucks. Three, it's impossible to do this across the internet. If your cell phone has a fingerprint reader, it's going to read it here, verify it here, and what gets sent is the information about the thumbprint. Something I know is information. You and I set up a secret, and in the future, someone pretending to be you would have to know the secret.
Excuse me, sir. I asked if you knew where I can get a newspaper. You make the slightest move, and I shoot, and I don't miss.
It's that simple. The problem arises when the password isn't kept secret. Maybe it's extremely easy to guess. Maybe you share it with untrustworthy friends. Maybe you use the same one across other services. Maybe you keep it on a sticky note on your monitor. But if you manage your passwords properly, use a password manager to generate strong ones, to store them, and to remind you to update them every so often, the shared secret is as strong of a secret as you'll ever get. A password manager will generate a password that's closer to truly random than a human brain will, and will happily do so for whatever length you give it. So you only have to commit one really good password to memory, then you don't have to even know your password to all your other services. The cybersecurity industry is built on convincing people they need some other solution and selling it to them. I submit the distinction between authentication methods is merely academic. However, I'm going to authenticate against your system must be encoded into information to be sent across the internet, meaning the only actual authentication is collapsed into one factor. Something you know. You never really have multiple factors. Certificates? Effectively a long password. YubiKey? A hardware token that solves out a password. Authenticator app? Quickly expiring password. Text message sent to your phone? A slowly expiring password. Back in my day, the style at the time was a remember me checkbox that would store a cookie on your computer so you didn't have to log in over and over and over. That's what cookies are actually supposed to be for. This would be an example of authenticating with your password and registering something you have, that computer, as your new method. However, as multi-user systems effectively went extinct, more companies adopted the attitude that desktop computers are multi-user systems. Based on this delusion, the Remember Me checkbox is now ignored, but because it's a thing people want, it's still displayed. You're not allowed to consider your desktop to be something you have, which is absurd. The idea of the family computer is long dead.
It's dead.
And if you have a real computer, it's very probably more under your control than your car keys, protected by a stronger password, locked in a space you control, and just flat out less portable. There's this popular image of a hacker being someone who looks nothing like your average sysadmin, set up in a luxuriously spacious warehouse which somehow doesn't have to worry about bills for rent, electricity, or bandwidth, cracking passwords through sheer typing speed. That's not how hacks happen. A good password is as secure as it reasonably gets. The only problems are that you need a tool to generate a good one, and you need to keep it secret. You know how hacks actually happen? One of the most common ways you will be hacked is that you'll be phished, which is where you are tricked into bypassing your own security, no matter how many channels or factors you use. And then, of course, if someone physically takes your phone. To make it even worse, far too many third parties feel entitled to control over your device. CrowdStrike was inevitable. There's also another contender to make us less secure and charge us more for the privilege. Yubico, as well as the usual suspects of Apple, Google, and Microsoft, are currently telling developers to prepare for when they tell users that they want the passwordless future. In short, it's switching people over to a fourth authentication factor. Instead of something you have, something you are, or something you know, it's someone else vouching for you. They call it the passkey standard. A user registers with their service, and to authenticate, you talk to your user through them. We have seen with LastPass, there's precedent that they would raise their price and coincidentally suffer some technical issues, making it difficult to exfiltrate your own data. There are some possible good futures though. 1. Maybe the passkey standard won't suffer the tragedy of the commons the way email did. Why am I offering this as a ray of hope? Because I don't see a similar vector for passkeys to become a massive standard. Surely, if I'm your average iPhone user, I want to be able to passkey authenticate not just to Apple itself, but to all the apps I was told to download. My favorite astrologer isn't an Apple service, but to get my extremely personalized bi-hourly horoscope, I need to use my passkey to authenticate with my horoscope app. My favorite cafe has excellent baristas, but no sysadmins on staff. Because it's still necessary to authenticate against many disparate systems, I predict Microsoft will have less ability to force your local axe-throwing hut to conform to too onerous of a standard when they could still just as easily not. They're much happier to send you spam over text versus email already, I'm sure you'll agree. What's much more likely is that passkey adaptation will be like Apple Pay. Some tech company will be happy to manufacture and sell some special authentication box to each company. But I suspect people won't want to buy it for themselves, even if they like the technology. You may remember when laptops commonly had a smart card port. You can still get readers, but that technology didn't really take off. 2. Google Authenticator. Given the move towards the passwordless future, surely this will show up in the Google graveyard soon after. But until then, it's half correct, and isn't it what most normal people want?
Precious. They stole it from us.
An app on your phone that displays a short, simple code that you enter and forget about? Sure, your cell phone would still unfortunately be the nexus of your security and identity, but here's the secret. It's a well-defined engineering standard, so when you set up a Google Authenticator code, it's not soul-bound to your phone. It's just a bit more information. Secretly, it's effectively a password. And you can move that password to a more trustworthy machine or collection of machines. It just does some cool math bullshit to make it feasible to use. Being time-sensitive, it helps to resist the ever-present problem of brute force password cracking. Being a quick setup and a short code to work with, it's easy for humans to use. Rather than garbage human brains, machine handles it, so it's much more mathematically sound.
For the machine is immortal.
It has a nice, professionally designed interface and the company logo of someone who matters, so normal people are willing to consider it. So if we could all just switch over to just Google Authenticator, depending on if that's a big ask for normal people, we'd have a more secure, more convenient future than the lower quality, higher price one that Apple is going to tell you want. And then weirdos like me can use non-Google TOTP generators. Or just generate good passwords. Get a password manager.